When you think of a heist, you probably think of brute force. Guns, fast cars, smashing through walls. But every once in a while, a crime comes along that's different. It's more like a chess match. This is the story of a heist that wasn't just a threat. It was an intellectual puzzle, a machine designed from the ground up to be unbeatable. So that was the real question facing the FBI and some of the world's best bomb experts back in 1980. The problem wasn't just how to take apart a bomb. It was how to outthink a machine that was specifically built to counter their every single move. So here's how we're going to walk through this. First, we're going to look at the device itself, this impossible machine. Then, we'll decode the bomber's chillingly precise instructions, get into the high-stakes game of wits that followed, see how it all went wrong, and finally, reveal the absolutely stunning, audacious plan that was behind it all.
All right, so our story begins not with a bang, but with a very quiet and very unsettling discovery. Let's set the scene. It's about 6:30 in the morning at a bustling casino in Lake Tahoe. A supervisor is doing his usual rounds on an employee-only floor, and he spots something. A massive, gray metal box just sitting there in the hallway. No one saw it arrive, no one heard a thing. It had just appeared. And when they got a closer look, the details were just chilling. The welding was professional. The control panel on top looked incredibly complex, like something out of a sci-fi movie. The locks on nearby doors, glued shut. And this thing was so heavy it was sinking into the carpet. Right away, this screamed meticulous planning and very, very serious intent. Well, the bomb squad shows up, and they knew immediately this was unlike anything they had ever dealt with. They hit it with x-rays, and what they saw was just a maze of wires and sensors. They even put a stethoscope to the side of it and could hear a faint sound. Something was active inside. This was no hoax. The threat was 100% real, and a clock had just started ticking. Now, with the machine came an envelope, and inside that envelope, the bomber laid out the rules of his game. This wasn't just some crude demand for money, it was more like a technical manual for an impossible trap. This quote, from the very beginning of the 3-page letter, just sets the tone, doesn't it? The bomber was incredibly confident. He was precise, and he left absolutely no room for negotiation or error. He made it clear, the slightest vibration, and it was game over. And this is where you start to see the bomber's incredible foresight. He anticipated every standard procedure the bomb squad had. You want to try flooding it to short the electronics? Nope, a float switch would set it off. You want to try tilting it to get underneath? Too bad, a tilt sensor would trigger it. He had literally thought of everything. So let's lay out the terms, because they were wild. He demanded $3 million in used $100 bills, of course. He gave them a 24-hour deadline. And here's the kicker. He promised the instructions to disarm the bomb would only be provided after he got the money. The authorities were backed into a corner with no good moves. With really no other choice, the FBI had to play along. They got the money together and prepared for the exchange. But as you can probably guess, this wasn't going to be a simple drop-off. It was another meticulously designed test. Just listen to this plan. It's like something out of a spy movie. The pilot had to go from a public phone booth to a hidden letter, to a secret location in the woods marked only by a strobe light. Each step was designed to make it absolutely impossible for the FBI to follow or set up a trap. The bomber was in total control. And this detail right here is just genius. See, back in 1980, tracing a phone call took a few minutes. The bomber knew this. He kept his calls to a payphone under 5 seconds long. By the time the police could even start a trace, the line was dead. He was always one step ahead. So the FBI had their plan. The bomber had his. But as it so often happens when the stakes are this high, things did not go according to plan. Right off the bat, the FBI broke rule number 1, pilot only. They hid a gunman in the helicopter. But the real critical failure was just simple human error. Under all that pressure, flying in the dark, the pilot misread the coordinates in the note. He flew the helicopter miles away from where he was supposed to be. Can you just imagine the tension in that cockpit? Circling for an entire hour, desperately searching the dark forest for a strobe light that was never going to appear because they were in the wrong place. Eventually, they had to give up and return to the airport empty-handed. The exchange was a total failure, and precious time had just evaporated. So now the deadline is getting dangerously close, the ransom drop is a bust, and there's still a live
1,000-pound bomb sitting in a casino. The authorities were completely out of time, and they were out of options.
And then the strangest thing happens. The 24-hour deadline passes, and nothing. The bomb doesn't go off. For a moment, there was this glimmer of hope. Maybe it was a dud after all. But they couldn't take that chance. They decided on one last desperate gamble, a plan to use a small, targeted explosion, a shaped charge, to try and surgically sever the control box from the main bomb.
Their plan failed. Horribly. The shaped charge wasn't precise enough. Instead of disabling the bomb, it acted as the very trigger they were trying to avoid. The device, which it turned out was packed with over 1,000 pounds of dynamite, detonated. The blast was unbelievable, tearing a 5-story hole through the casino and proving beyond any doubt that the bomber's machine was terrifyingly real.
So the explosion left everyone with two giant questions. First, who on earth could build a device like that? And second, what was the real plan? The investigation that followed uncovered a story of obsession, revenge, and a plot that was even more audacious than anyone could have imagined.
The criminal mastermind wasn't some international terrorist or a rogue government agent. It was John Birges, a 58-year-old guy who was consumed by a personal vendetta against the very casino he just blew a hole in. He had lost his life savings there. And his accomplices? His own sons. And this is the final brilliant twist. The incredibly complex ransom drop was never really about the money drop itself. The ultimate goal was to steal the aircraft. That final note, the one the pilot was supposed to find in a tree, it was a decoy, designed to lure him away from the aircraft, leaving it wide open for Burgess' sons to jump in, hijack it, and disappear with the cash. So why does this story still matter so much today? Because the Harvey's casino bombing literally forced a revolution in bomb disposal tactics. The machine, as it's now known, became a legendary case study for the FBI, shaping how they approach these kinds of complex threats even now. Burges ultimately lost his gamble, but his creation left a permanent mark.
And that really brings us to our final thought. Burgess' entire plan relied on payphones, paper maps, and mechanical triggers. Think about it. In our world of GPS tracking, constant digital surveillance, and instant communication, could such a hands-on, intricate, and purely analog plot ever work again? It's definitely something to think about.